I'm Mark Stover, I'm the Dean of the Oviatt Library here at CSUN, and it's my pleasure to welcome all of you to today's special event. This event culminates our commemoration of Black History Month, and I'd like to especially thank the Planning Committee for all their work in making today possible. First of all, Del Williams, the chair of the committee, who you'll meet again in a couple minutes, Jackie Zach, Joycelyn Dunham, Kimberly Embledon, Steve Coutey, Keith Rice, Isabel Ramos, and Nicole Shabbat. Would you please stand to be acknowledged? So, my personal story, in just a few words, won't be long. When I see flashing police lights behind my car, my heart starts to race. What did I do wrong? Am I exceeding the speed limit? But as it turns out, of course, it's exceedingly rare when I'm stopped by the police while driving. It has happened, always for good reason. On the other hand, if I find myself walking in an unfamiliar neighborhood, then I welcome a police presence. It feels like protection, and I feel safer. But these are the reflections of a white, privileged male who has never been stopped or detained because of the color of my skin. I know that the reactions from people of color to a police presence are often very different from mine, with good reason. Statistics tell a disheartening story that black and brown people are more likely to be stopped by police than white people. And the problem is even more tragic and disturbing when it comes to young African American men. It's unfair that people of color should have to endure these inequities. I don't like it at all, and I suspect that no one in this room likes it either. In fact, it probably makes most of us angry. But why is it happening? And what can we do to make things better? Personally, I believe that the problem is systemic and societal. And at the same time, I would also assert my belief that the law enforcement officers on this campus have a difficult job and that they do it very well. I've seen them in action with non-student members of the community who seem to have mental illness issues, and the police handle these stressful situations with kindness and gentleness. But I also recognize that there may be others with different stories, especially given that, again, I see the world through the lens of my own white privilege. And I also acknowledge that the police personnel on this campus may not be representative of every law enforcement agency or officer in this city or in our country. So with all that being said, I'm looking forward to today's panel discussion. I'll try my best to listen and to learn from those who have a different perspective than I do. And I hope that we can all move forward with a better understanding of how to make this a better world despite the inequities that continue to lie beneath the surface. So now I'll turn things over to Del Williams, member of the library faculty, who will introduce today's moderator.
Thank you, Mark. Welcome, everybody. I'm honored today to introduce our moderator, Natalie Mason Kinsey, our CSUN Chief Diversity Officer. Natalie holds a bachelor's degree in American Ethnic Studies from the University of Washington and a law degree from Howard University Law School. She held a series of positions in Washington, D.C., in the Office of the Architect of the Capitol and Howard University General Counsel. She spent 13 years with the City University of New York at public institutions, including community and four-year colleges. She served as the Chief Diversity Officer for Brooklyn College, the Director of Affirmative Action, Compliance, and Diversity for the City College of New York, and the Affirmative Action Officer for Hostos Community College. Before coming to CSUN in May 2018, she served as the Chief Officer of Equal Employment Opportunity for the Metropolitan Transit Authority Bus Company. Our moderator today, Natalie Mason Kinsey.
Thank you, Dell, and good afternoon, everyone. I am going to introduce our illustrious panel for this afternoon, and then we are going to have a series of questions, and after that series of questions, I'm going to open it up to the audience so that you all have a chance to ask questions of the panelists. First and foremost, I would like to introduce to you, those of you who do not know him, and for the rest of you, say good afternoon, to Dr. William Watkins, who is our Vice President of Student Affairs here at CSUN and our Dean of Students. Dr. Watkins is an alum of Cal State University Northridge, and he is currently one of our longest serving administrators here on the campus. Welcome, Dr. Watkins. Next to Dr. Watkins is one of our newest members to the CSUN community. This is our new Chief of Police here at CSUN, Chief Gregory Murphy. Chief Murphy began his law enforcement career in 1993 with the Los Angeles Police Department. He has held the ranks of police officer and Sergeant 2 with the Los Angeles Police Department. In 2003, he joined the University of California Police Department as lieutenant. And since 2003, he's worked at 2 UC campuses and has been promoted to captain, assistant chief, and currently serves here at CSUN as our chief of police. Welcome. Next to Chief Murphy is Sergeant Frank Godani. He is a CSUN police officer who grew up in Eagle Rock and enlisted in the United States Navy after graduating from high school in 1988. He started his law enforcement career in 1997 with the Glendale Community College Police Department, while also working as a reserve officer with Glendale Police Department for 3 years. He joined the CSUN Police Department in 2003 and was part of the inaugural community policing team in 2004. Sergeant Frank has held various assignments, including motor unit supervisor, RAD women, RAD men, and RAD kids instructor, as well as child safety seat technician, and has mentored new officers as a field training officer. Welcome. And I'm looking and I'm hoping I'm not going to get this name wrong because we moved the signs a little bit. Eduardo Estrada. Raise your hand because I think I went out of order. Thank you, Mr. Estrada. Eduardo is a first-generation student currently finishing a double major here at CSUN in history and Chicana studies. His focus in history has centered around the experiences of people in color in the region now known as the United States, and he plans on earning his teacher credential to begin teaching with the Los Angeles Unified School District. Not done yet, I have a little bit more. His student involvement on campus began when he joined the Movimiento Estudiantil Chicanx de Aztlán here at CSUN, and he continued with the organization Students for Quality Education. His organizing efforts have centered around resisting and rolling back tuition, addressing white supremacy in the CSU, faculty labor disputes, and, as of 2017, organizing against Executive Orders 1100R and 1110. Our next panelist is Diego Paniagua. Diego is the student organizer for the Revolutionary Scholars Project here at CSUN. At the grassroots level, Revolutionary Scholars is grounded on an abolitionist framework, building towards providing equitable access to resources for formerly incarcerated and systems-impacted students on campus. He holds a bachelor's degree in Chicano Studies and is currently pursuing his master's degree in Chicano Studies here at CSU Northridge. His research interests are environmental justice and critical geography. Diego was also one of the founding members of the Vocal Artillery. Welcome. Our next panelist is Mr. Ben Ziegler, the Director of Jewish Student Life here on campus. Growing up, Ben was heavily involved in organized Jewish life, attending Jewish summer camp for over a decade and serving in leadership positions in his local and regional Jewish youth groups. He also shared his family's passion for public service, studying political science at UC San Diego, and working as a field representative for a state assembly member for 2 years following his graduation. Ben left state government to return to his roots within the Jewish community and received graduate degrees in Jewish education and Jewish nonprofit management. He currently serves as the Director of Jewish Student Life for Hillel 818, also known as CSUN Hillel, and is passionate about helping others find an active and personally meaningful place within the Jewish people. Welcome. Our next panelist is Kayomi McGee. She is the president of the Black Student Union here at CSUN. Kayomi is a junior with a major in sociology and a minor in Africana Studies. She is the president of the BSU here on campus and is also an assistant producer for AS Productions. She is involved on campus and in housing, being a part of AS and also working in housing as a student assistant in their community room. In her free time, she enjoys having thought-provoking conversations and relaxing with friends and family. Welcome, Kayomi. And last but not least, Kayla Moore-Jones is part of CSU Naturals. She was born in Long Beach, California, but she was raised in Los Angeles. She's a freshman and the director of membership for CSUN Naturals, which is a natural hair club aimed at promoting natural, healthy hair through culture and education. She is majoring in marketing, and she plans to use her degree to build her own business in the Black community, centering and helping to teach financial literacy to adults. Welcome. So panelists, I'm going to go straight down the road this time, starting with Dr. Watkins, and I want to hear what each of you has to say briefly. Tell me what you thought when you read the title of today's panel, Empty Your Pockets, Show Me Your Papers, Building Student Trust on Campus. What feelings, if any, did this evoke?
Many. All the way from what a catchy name for a seminar or a panel in terms of provoking interest in a discussion, to I certainly hope that's not the lived experiences of students here at Cal State Northridge, unknown to me and others. So we have a range of different kinds of ways in which I think we can relate to the title for this particular panel. I'm certainly interested to hear what experiences students might be having there. But most of the folk in this room here either recruit students to this institution or have sons or daughters who attend this institution, and etc. And probably we would not be doing any of that if we thought those references defined the student experience here at Cal State Northridge. But it can't define the experience of individual students, but I don't accept these characterizations as the lived uniform experience of our students here.
Thank you, Dr. Watkins.
Certainly a catchy title and an attention-catching title. I immediately wondered what the nexus to the campus police was, but certainly within the context, understood based on what is happening nationally, the significance of it.
For me, it was one, catchy, but also an opportunity to once again provide a way to bridge the gaps between the police department and the concerns that our community may have. It was a good way, and I'm so looking forward to being here and part of this panel to see if I can maybe answer and provide you some answers to the questions you may have, with our department as a whole, but also as a community as a whole, or where we're at as a community. I can tell you from being here for 16 plus years now here at CSUN, we have a great community here. I mean, it is a diverse community where we're able to interact with each other, not only on a one-on-one basis, but also within our groups. I see that throughout the times when we're out there working with some of you folks, especially. I can see some familiar faces here. and we're able to interact with you and provide the service that we should be able to provide to make you feel comfortable in your surroundings and be able to come here and be able to learn or be able to do the job that we all need.
I think for me, I mean, it kind of impacted me a little different. I've been arrested before, so it was kind of triggering. I've heard those statements by police officers, and even sitting in this panel, I still feel a little uneasy sitting next to Mr. Frank over here because of systemic realities that I've been through and I've experienced. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the title does come from actual incidents that happened last semester to actual students in our campus. These are things that they were told. Last semester, sexual abuse, sexual attacks on campus happened, hate crimes happened, people's cultures were being made fun of, people's freedom of speech were protected when it was actually a hate crime. So for me, I live a different reality in this campus, I guess, and I want to be very genuine and very transparent with everyone. I don't see a community at CSUN right now. We are not unified. We don't have a unified identity. And I'm not sure what you can show me that really describes that, because you can't say student success or student equity or faculty representation or racial equity in this campus is being acknowledged, because it's not. I do want to acknowledge that there is beautiful communities on this campus that are constantly being created by people of color, and it's extremely taxing to continue to do that, and it's extremely stressful and defeating sometimes to not have institutionalized structures that promote activism and promote spaces where we can be safe during a time where, you know, fucking Trump's president and he's doing a lot of fucked up shit and we're kind of going backwards. And like, what reality are we really living? But yeah, that was a little bit what I thought.
He said a lot of it. When I first saw it, I was a little floored because Dr. Watkins said that he hopes this isn't the realities of the students, but this is one of the most diverse campuses in the state, and this is the reality for a bunch of students, right? I myself have heard these phrases, before, and it invokes feelings of sort of dread that we know this is going on. We know this is going on, and saying it's catchy is one thing. It's good to grab attention to highlight the reality of this, but then I'm hoping that something can be said and done forward from that.
Looking at the title of today's presentation, the first half leaves me feeling uncomfortable. It evokes in me the historical experience of the Jewish people, in particular when it came to the Holocaust, and it reminds me of the current realities of minorities and people of color in the United States today. The second half, on the other hand, leaves me somewhat hopeful. I think it's really necessary that we're able to have this conversation as a group today, and I hope that much more will come of this, because it's an important conversation and it's necessary, and we need to be able to have this sort of trust here on campus.
Hi, I'm a little nervous, so bear with me, but I think that for me, the title kind of was the same for Diego, I believe your name was?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I just thought it was interesting because it's kind of like an oxymoron. It's like, show me your papers, kind of like historically saying how like minority groups are like not allowed in certain spaces, and to try to prove that we are accepted in those spaces. So I think it was really interesting, and also like just building student trust on campus. Like, it's interesting and it's thought-provoking, and it's, you know, it grabs attention, but it's just like, how do you try to create student trust on campus when you like begin with something that's distrustful for me? So I think it was really interesting.
So, like Kylie said, I'm a little nervous, but when I first saw the title, like Diego said, it brought back memories. Like I can recall summer after my junior year, me and a group of friends were hanging out outside of our friend's house, and we were stopped by police while we were outside the house just talking. And it started with one car, and then two, and then three cars, and we were all frisked. And it's a reality for a lot of minority students, not just Black students. And the second part of the title, Building Student Trust on Campus, I feel hopeful, and I hope that we can figure out ways to do so, but that's a very vague topic, and there's so much that can be done. I don't really think necessarily we can come up with a full action plan during this panel, but I hope we can make some steps towards equality and feeling safe on campus.
Thank you. Don't give up the mic just yet, because I'm going to move to question 2, and I'm going to work the opposite way, because I want to start. This one is specifically for my students here on campus. Can you please characterize the mood of students on campus as you each individually and collectively experienced it, particularly since the December 12th, 2018 incident last semester?
So the mood for students after the incident on December 12th, I mean, that day, housing, everyone was on edge. I've never seen that many police in housing alone on campus. Even though I wasn't on campus, you could see it from people posting on social media. And the police presence honestly did not make me feel safer. It put me more on edge, seeing that many police officers in housing and stationed around random areas. And it got to the point where me and my friend had to leave because it was a very tense and stressful situation. And then the following day, I had to go to campus to turn in the paper. And I remember I had never seen campus so dead at 8 o'clock in the morning. There was no one there. It was a peaceful kind of scene because it was a sunny day, but there was no one there. And it was literally a ghost town on campus. And I think students are really on edge now more than ever because the way the campus handled the situation, it made it seem like, one, students' lives don't matter, and two, minority students' lives don't matter above all, and that they don't take these threats seriously. And it really leaves you with the thought following it, coming into the new semester, that if this happens again, like, what are they going to treat it the same way, or are they actually going to take it seriously?
Thank you.
I have to agree with Kayla. Just for me personally and my group of friends, it was like, you know, at first when we heard it, we're just like, everybody's on edge. They're just like, oh, like this is hate speech. Like, what's going on? Are we gonna go to campus? Like, are we gonna have a final? But over time, it's just like all of us started concocting our own like ideas of like the symbolism of the date and like just like the atmosphere of like our politics around us. And we were just like, honestly, does it, like, we all have felt unsafe on campus, regardless of this situation or not. But it just kind of highlighted the tensity of the situation and of our own like fears, because it's like, you know, because it was directed at a certain group of people. Like for me specifically, I'm Black wherever I go. So like, regardless if I should feel safe or not, like I'm a target. Is how like that's how it felt. Like it's like I can be safe if you know there's officers around, but at the same time somebody's gonna see me, and if this is real, I'm unsafe regardless. So that's kind of how I felt, and I think a lot of students around me felt.
I think our community and CSUN would also echo a similar experience. Definitely coming at it from a different perspective. Being Jewish puts us in this interesting position of being seen on one hand as a minority group, but also having a great deal of privilege on the other. But even in the midst of all of that, our students were very, very disturbed and uncomfortable by the note and the letters and the graffiti and everything that came with us. In fact, I haven't seen our students be that uncomfortable before, which definitely is an aspect of the privilege that we have, but also speaks to the nature of the threat that was made. I think some of our students would have wanted to have seen more of a response from campus, and other members of our community were pleased with the response. Because our community is so varied and different, a lot of different opinions come up. I don't know how actively concerned our Jewish community is now, but there's definitely, I've noticed, an underlying level of stress that's present amongst all of our students, more based on what's been taking place on campus and just what's going on in today's world generally.
Thank you, Ben.
I feel like there's been a huge level of disconnect since the incident, specifically more between students on the campus and students and each other. Specifically in the ethnic studies department, that's somewhere where students usually sort of have carved out their niche, carved out people they're comfortable with. They're able to have discussions with each other, which feel safe with each other, right? And as I mentioned before, when the incident occurred, campus was empty. We were afraid to come to campus. Campus was dead silent for weeks, and I don't think I know anybody that was excited to come back to campus when the next semester started. On top of that, the threats happened in Sierra Hall, and that's where the majority of the humanities classes are, majority of the studies classes are. And the increased patrol there, having police everywhere there, was really unsettling, and I don't believe it made the majority of the people there feel safer. That just added on to that disconnect that I feel like we had, because in our departments, on this campus, there was a level of security before that. And although we knew there was some tension, although we knew there were conservative students and just blatant racist students, it wasn't, I don't think it was as overtly in our face until those threats were made. And it's just, the tension has not gone away since.
Thank you.
Last semester, a lot of things happened. I don't know if you also remember two of the mass shootings that made national headlines were alumni from CSUN. So it was really, to me, California is like this idea of a liberal, progressive sanctuary state, and CSUN to me has always represented the diversity, right? That we choose to champion it in moments where it's convenient. And I think last semester really broke that facade, and we students were really able to see through the reality of what is going on around the United States. A lot of hate groups, a lot of right-wing groups started coming out of the woodworks, right, where they were just chilling until someone like Trump came around to, affirm them that they were right. So last year was kind of, I don't know if you've ever seen a Black Mirror, but like last semester was a trip. It was just like this alternate universe that I didn't think existed, and where someone like Trump is president, and things like that semester happened, and like all those things happened. So it was really scary. But one thing that I was really able to, and I think it helped a lot of us students going through the day, was really find like refuge in our own ways, right? Creating self-healing circles, creating spaces where we could talk and be comfortable with each other, because I think a lot of students felt that CSUN or administration was not really handling that right or providing those spaces. And I'm not really sure how more law enforcement historically or has ever addressed that or fixed that or made it easier for students. So it was just a lot.
Thank you. The next question I have is I'm going to start with Chief Murphy, and then I'm going to follow to Dr. Watkins, and then I'm going to come back to you, Sergeant. Some groups have advocated for the removal of the current law enforcement paradigm to make way for self-policing. When considering this proposal, what merits and challenges are presented, especially on a campus of this size and with our diversity?
Of course, being in the police profession, I really have a difficult time with the concept of self-policing, just because I know how challenging it is for individuals who have years of training and still have challenges in meeting the expectations of the greater communities. So I wonder how successful folks would be just in fulfilling those roles just off the cuff and without any specialized training. I'm prepared as necessary to talk about the fundamental training, the advanced training that folks on police departments go through to serve their communities. And so as a citizen of our state and of our nation, personally, it would cause me a lot of concern if I knew for myself and my family that we didn't have trained police departments to respond to the crimes that we report to them.
Now, I'm not sure how we would actually remove law enforcement entirely from the campus community. I like the idea of self-policing, not in the sense of individuals walking around and apprehending individuals and approaching it from that vantage point. But I think to the extent that we can be responsible for each other in our environment, when we can speak up when in fact we see things that are going on, intervene, be that someone who's under attack physically or orally. I mean, whatever we can do right now to advance respect among each other, caretaking of each other. I like what Diego was talking about earlier in terms of students taking care of students and being concerned about each other at the end of the last semester. I fully support those kinds of dimensions. But obviously in the state, in terms of enforcing the law, there's a particular structure that occasions that. And to have individuals going up and apprehending individuals without the benefit of being able to do that through law would create its own set of calamities and problems.
Thank you. Sergeant, I'm gonna come right back to you. Diego.
For me, it's a difficult challenge, and I would say that it's our community, not just the police department policing, but empowering the community to work with the police department here at CSUN. And I think here at CSUN, you have one of the better police departments around the state. We have taken our department into the community policing world in terms of assisting and coordinating with the community to make it a safer community for everybody. We've done that by trying to break down the barriers, so to speak. So we've got our officers, for example, on bicycle patrol, foot patrol, making it easier for the community to approach and concerns. And I've had that experience while working on patrol here at CSUN. A lot of the community, most of the community that, especially while on patrol, on motorcycle patrol, will come up to me. And during that time of that December incident, they would express their concerns, and it was great speaking with them and being able to address their concerns and doing that on a daily basis. I think that's what it takes. The community, along with the police department, working together to make it a safer place.
Thank you. I have two things, Diego. I want to hear what you have to say about the last question, but I want to ask one more, and then we'll open this up a little bit more. What would make you feel safe on campus? Because I want you to respond, but I also want to hear what would make you feel safe on campus as well.
I'll answer the first one.
Yes.
I guess a few questions, or I'd like to take a step back and really analyze what does the police department do in our society, right? Protect and serve. This idea of protect and serve. But historically, for a lot of communities, it's actually been state-sanctioned violence, right? A lot of students have heard of the prison industrial complex and mass incarceration. We currently live in the area that houses the largest jail system in the world. We have the Golden Gulag of prisons in Central California, the largest prison corridor in the world that houses the most inmates per space in any area of the world. So, really addressing the reality of what we live in, right? We live in a reality where people of color have historically been put away, have historically been forced into toxic communities to live in. That's the reality that I choose to live, right? That's the reality that drives my critical focus in being in the university. That's the reality that I choose to see, because that's the reality that I came from. So I'm not sure what law enforcement can, or I don't think we figured out what law enforcement can do, but I definitely, in revolutionary scholars ground itself in an abolitionist ideology. A lot of people think abolition, oh, you don't believe in prisons. And it's like, well, it's if I would define it, it would be more of like the divestment in law enforcement and the reinvestment in community and alternative ways of figuring out solutions by community, for community. And I think we're not there as a society yet. Like Trump is president, we live in a white supremacy society, and to me, the police department, although they operate under this guise of protect and serve, has historically and to an extent continues to uphold state-sanctioned violence on communities of color. That's just a reality that we can't like stray away from. That's just real. And I want to humanize, Gregory and Frank, and I'm sure they're good people and they have good intentions, and it's not them as a person, and it's more of like what they represent, right? And if we're having conversations on what can we do to change that, then they should be part of the conversation. And if their intentions are to help people, then let's educate folks and figure out how we can do it as a community. Because right now the police departments function as an arm of holding this carceral society that also upholds white supremacy. Yeah, those are just a few comments on that.
Wait, before
And what would make me feel safe on campus? I think my department makes me feel really safe. I'm in the Department of International Studies. When I look up at my professors, every time I think the last 2 years I've only had one male professor, and they've all been women of color. And it's I can't explain how good it makes me feel when I see a person that looks like me, that comes from the places that I am, teaching me how to be transformative and teaching me how to realize all these things, right? And things that I came from Central California, very conservative. I had all white teachers. Things that white teachers never could relate or never could tell me, right? Because they weren't seeing and experiencing my experiences. So for me, safety would look like racial equity within faculty, so that students will not have to feel like they can't become that professor. And they feel safe that their education is going to give them something because it's represented in who they see in their campus every day. And it's not a fear that when I come out of here, I'm going to be in a society that judges me first by what I look like, not by what I am, right? So that would make me feel safe, I guess.
Thank you. Eduardo, same question to you, sir.
Really seeing the focus shift from these two gentlemen. One of the things they all sort of emphasized was apprehension, right? Apprehension, how I guess to them police enforcement focuses on apprehension, where I feel like the focus needs to be shifted towards the needs of the people and the needs of the students, right? What can we do to prevent stuff that needs quote unquote specialized training to respond to? Students over at Casa LA, they're currently trying to disarm the police. I feel like that's something very tangible that should be done too, because right now, seeing Sergeant Frank answer the questions, something that really has been striking me was that big taser they got on right now. And I don't see why it would be necessary for them to be wearing that right now, or like but appropriate to wear that right now when they're just discussing in a panel, right? Something just small and tangible as disarming the police would make a massive difference, I think.
Ben, same question.
Not being a student on campus and instead being a professional that serves students, I don't know if I'm really very well qualified to actually answer what might make students feel comfortable on campus, so I'm going to politely pass the microphone to you.
Thank you.
Personally, I think I have to agree. I forgot your name, but I think something as easy as just like disarming police, because like, as David was saying, it's a reality that, there's police violence and brutality in minority communities. So it's just like, when I'm walking on campus and I see a group of 7 police officers and they all have guns in their holsters, I'm just gonna walk the other way or assume the worst, just because that's like a reality for me and other groups of students on campus. So I just think that it's like, what could possibly be so extreme as to have a deadly weapon in, like, on your person, especially where on a campus that has students as young as 18, 17. So it's just like, I don't know. For me, it's that, it's as simple as that. I definitely agree.
Kayla?
So, I believe that the removal of law enforcement is something that would honestly have a positive aspect, because if we think about law enforcement was brought about when slavery was abolished, so before then there was no police officers. And when you think about what communities are being policed, it is primarily the ethnic communities that are complaining about police brutality. And if we allow these communities to practice self-policing, I see no problem with it. I think the only drawback from that is when other communities try to police other communities. And I think it's very funny that we're having this conversation. This argument has been brought up even during the civil rights movement, and Malcolm X has said the same thing. So I think that's really funny that in this day and age, we're still having this conversation about whether or not we need police. And I'm not saying all police are bad, but once you guys recognize your heritage and what you started as, and recognize that there is brutality and stuff, and it might have to do with what you started as my bad. But once you recognize your heritage and what the police force started as and not what it is now, and maybe try to work from that and figure something else out when it comes to policing, that would work. And I do agree with Kayomi, there is no need for you guys to be armed now or on campus primarily, because students are just going to class most of the time.
I'm going to let Dr. Watkins and then Chief Murphy respond, and then I'm going to ask another question.
To the issue continuing in terms of whether I'm going to have law enforcement officers with guns on campus. I mean, there are some campuses that have security forces that in fact, the enforcement officers are not armed. The model for the California State University system, as you know, is what we're experiencing here. I have expressions to me during the course of the year that we need more police officers. It may be hard for folk in here to imagine that, but this is a large institution, and some individuals really feel secure when there are officers here. Others are obviously made to feel more secure if there were less of them here. If we were to have a shooting occurring on our campus, we probably would want some way to have officers be able to deal with that rather than just beyond just perhaps trying to tackle them and take them down. And I think we can think of circumstances under which our students may be under attack, where we want officers to be able to come in with a level of force that might require the use of a firearm. Not every intervention would require that. So I'm just trying to paint the picture that we have a very large and complex environment here, large number of students, faculty. It's not just students, it's faculty, staff, and students who make up this environment here. And some people, again, are in fact made to feel more comfortable by law enforcement officers than the contrary.
Actually, Dr. Watkins summed up what, at least everything that I could bring to the answer. As a law enforcement officer, and certainly as an executive, I have to ensure that folks that I'm asking to go out and enforce the law are prepared to defend themselves up to the level and including deadly force. So it would be negligent of me as a law enforcement professional to send someone out when they could very easily be a target of someone that wanted to kill them. And the only choice they may have is a firearm to defend themselves if nothing else. Additionally, and what's really most important here is every law enforcement comes here every day understanding that they may have to sacrifice their life in the defense of the community that we serve. And that mental preparation goes up to and includes either them being killed or them having to take the unfortunate act of engaging in lethal force against them. But to potentially send an officer into that environment without that preparation, it's just, it can't be done.
Okay. Kayla and then Diego.
So I just have a question. Out of all the training that you guys receive, is that your only option when it comes to a threat? Is your only option whether to take their life or lose your own? Or is there no other procedure that you can do to, what's the word? To stop them?
De-escalate?
To de-escalate the situation without taking another person's life. Because I don't think anyone has that right to choose whether or not someone needs to die just because you feel unsafe.
That's a great point, and I was trying to be very careful and exact in describing that up to and including. And what I meant by up to addresses all of those areas that you talked about. Officers are ad nauseum trained to de-escalate, to utilize every method prior to that. And if you consider the statistics and take the data, that represents the number of encounters that law enforcement officers have with individuals over a year. You do the breakdown however you want to do it, nationally, statewide, locally, and you look at the numbers that bear out the numbers of lethal force as opposed to other methods of force. It is very minor in statistical data, the amount of encounters that require lethal force versus those other methods that you talk about. De-escalation, communicating with people, just everything that leads up to the level of lethal force.
Diego?
Like, why do people commit mass shootings, right? And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know, when's the last time a police officer was in a position where he was able to stop a mass shooting? Not a lot, right? Like, they're after, and they come in full force, like suited, army style. So I think like one of the things that we're trying to do is like address systemic change, and what does that look like? So when you increase the budget of a police force, like what are you saying? You're agreeing to this idea of capitalism, and a more police force equates to more people being policed. You can say that police officers are trained to de-escalate, but I think they are the only people given the authority to take another life if they deem it necessary, if they feel like their life is in danger, right? So they're given a lot of power, right, to take life. A lot of the language that is in the actual codes of the police officers, and that's why it's important to look at it historically, like what has the police force historically done? The language dehumanizes individuals, right? It treats them like animals. Afterward, you get arrested, you get put in a cage. That's not rehabilitation. So for me, abolition doesn't mean just getting rid of prisons, but it means creating alternative institutions that would alleviate the reasons why people are being criminalized. Increasing the budget of a police force and increasing law enforcement has never created more safety, has never brought real justice to communities of color, and has only led us to more people being incarcerated, more ways of being policed. And I really want to touch on like the Trump administration and what Betsy DeVos, or whatever the DeVos lady is in education, they're rolling back on a lot of the social equity and the language that's protecting, and some of the administrators should look into that if y'all haven't already looked into it, but they're rolling back and they're bringing back the zero tolerance, right? And this language that, you know, makes people act first, you know, this idea, I don't think police officers are trained professionally to deal with people that are going through mental issues, that are going through a tough time, that are going through an intense moment, right? And I don't think pointing a gun at someone is the best way for someone to react in a communicative manner. It actually would intensify the situation. So I don't know how increasing the budget, and I'm not sure what the budget is right now, but I'm pretty sure it's probably bigger than like most of the ethnic studies department budgets that we have on campus. 5 million, right? So like what does that say about what CSUN values? What are we putting money in? And how does that actually look like? I mean, again, we live in LA County, we house the largest prison system in the world, and we have the most incarcerated individuals in a single jail facility. And we also have the largest mental facility in that jail system, right? So we're criminalizing people that have issues. We're not creating alternative ways of figuring it out.
So I'm going to pass it down to Kayomi and Kayla, but first I want to bring us back for just a minute, because there's a difference between us being in LA County and us being here at CSUN.
Yes.
And I want to get us back to specifically about CSUN. Because yes, we all live in LA County, but I want to talk about here on campus, because that's what was most affected last semester. That's the part that we need to talk out, and I want to hear a little bit more about. I heard you talk about solutions about policing by the community, for the community, from the students, but I want you to touch a little bit more on what that means here at CSUN. What would that look like? What do you mean when you say that? And I'm going to turn it back over to Kayomi and then Kayla, and then we'll come back down.
That's exactly what I was gonna bring up, because it's like, I understand the situation of policing in other communities, but when I talked about the removing guns from holsters, I'm specifically talking about on campus. Like, there is a police force for CSUN's campus, and having a deadly weapon on campus doesn't mean that you're gonna make a safer campus. Like, we're not talking about the community, we're not talking about somebody being able, in a public space, to pull out a weapon and, you know, put people's lives in danger. We're talking about in campus, in classes, like, in spaces that we occupy. So, like, having the, you know, learning about de-escalation tactics and things like that, I don't think that we're talking about it applying to campus. Like, I understand what, I forgot his name, I'm so sorry, but I understand what he was saying when he was explaining the level of education that police officers have in de-escalating situations, but it's just like, instead of talking about it in a general sense, we need to talk about it in a specific campus sense, which is why I think that removing the tangibility of not having a weapon on campus when you're surrounded by 40,000 plus students is important. So I think, yeah, that's what I wanted to bring it back to.
I just had a question. You said $5 million? This $5 million budget, is this for campus police?
Yeah.
Why is that needed? What is that money going towards? Is that going towards more weapons? Why? Is that going towards getting more police? Why that $5 million going towards campus police budget is crazy. That is a lot of money to be policing students. No, I actually want to answer to that. Like, what is the money going towards?
I'm sorry, and I'm looking because I don't have an answer for you. I apologize. I don't have an answer for that. I'm going to refer to Dr. Watkins and Chief Murphy. Chief.
So, yeah, so primarily it is personnel. Policing any community, we police them 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. We're available for calls for service that come through a public safety dispatch center. So it is the full operation of all infrastructure, all equipment necessary to provide both service and protection to this community. That makes up.
So the current budget is not cutting it?
The current budget is cutting it for where we are today.
So what is the need for more if where we are here today is all right?
I think you're responding to an assertion made by someone else on the panel. Perhaps they could ask you about that more. But I've never said we need more money. I have not said that we need more money.
Or are you referring to when I said that some people ask for more police?
No, I'm referring to, well, what is the budget for if y'all want no more money?
So let me clarify. So I think, Kayla, that you're misquoting. So what Diego said, if I'm not mistaken, Diego, correct me if I'm wrong, was that the budget for police is $5 million. I don't recall who said that it was being raised. So I will tell you right now, there are no budgets on this campus that I'm aware of that are being raised. In fact, the budget is getting cut in most places. And so I don't know that there's been any increase in the budget for policing. Does that help clarify? Okay. Chief, were you finished with your explanation? I'm going to move on.
Yes, I am.
Okay. I want us to talk a little bit, if we can, because we only have a few more minutes left. I'm getting the eye. Before I open it up for questions from the audience. And this is for anyone, so whoever gets the mic first. Combination question. What do you think that we can do to foster better relationships on campus between our students, faculty, staff, and police? And also, what do you think needs to be done? So 2 things. What do you think needs to be done, and how would you go about making a better relationship between these groups on campus? Because part of this is that we need to talk to each other more, I think. But that's me posturing. I want to hear what the panel has to say about that.
Well, nobody wants to go. I personally, for campus police specifically, I don't think that it is an intention to, create this tension between minority students on campus and, between us and you. But I think that understanding the cultural significance of police and groups and people of color and the spaces they occupy is important, because if, there's a group of, for example, like, the Black students, we go to Little Crenshaw, which is in front of Sierra, and if it's like 20 of us, I don't need to see like 8 police officers. It's just like kind of enforcing the fact that, hey, we're here. And it might not be the intention 100%, but in our heads, it's like, hey, we're here, like, you need to stop whatever you're doing. And it's just like historically, I've grown up and people have grown up to understand not to trust the police. So I think that understanding that is reality for so many groups of people on campus, and trying to combat that is a way to, restore or create a relationship between students on campus and police officers and the campus police. But I think that until then, I don't know, just like kind of trying to acknowledge the impact that you have in the students' lives and their areas on campus is important, because, your presence it's known. Like, we see you, and like we already have a sense of judgment and safety for our own lives, before we feel safe around you. I think, not you specifically, but just in police in general. So for the first question, that's what I want to answer. I low-key forgot the second question.
The second question was about if you had any thoughts about how to go about fostering this better relationship or an improved relationship with the police that we have on campus, and how you see that hopefully making you as a student feel more comfortable at some point down the line, because I've heard most of the students say they were uncomfortable, they felt unsafe. I want to talk about how we can get back to the place where you felt safer and felt more comfortable. What was it, and what is it that can happen?
Oh yeah, I think I kind of covered just a little bit of it.
You
Yeah,
did.
so
You did.
Anybody else want to?
I feel like police presence has been an active role in fracturing the relationship between students and staff. Ever since my freshman year, we used to be able to stay on campus really late, and this is the only place we could study, a place we could feel safe. But recently, this past year, when we tried staying late, we've had staff threaten to call the police on us to get off campus. This is where we felt safe. We were here with friends studying on campus, and we were not allowed to be here anymore. And I don't know what's the logic behind that. I don't know what's going to cause that. This was really recent, and police presence has not been an active role in really fixing any of the tension that has been on campus.
Thank you.
I'll just add a little bit to that. I think, what was the first question again?
First question was, see, now you're making me forget. What can be done to improve campus safety, and then what strategies do you have to get us back to a workable place?
Right, well, I mean, I really want to thank Dow and the library for organizing this talk. I've never seen a name for a panel at CSUN like this. And I think it's long overdue at this point. I'm glad that we're having this conversation now. And I'm very happy to see everyone be part of the conversation that's having this conversation. I think if we're to move in any direction that's going to look okay for everyone, I think we have to have everyone at the table. And it shouldn't be the library's responsibility to have these talks, but like good work, you know, administration. As of now, I guess that they don't see it as a priority to have these talks, or people are not organizing these talks like that, right? We should have more of these talks. What can we actually do? I mean, it'd be great, you know, last February 14th, we had a Radical Love teach-out, and we had a little workshop on alternatives to 911, and we were talking about alternative ways of using community and sustainable ways of addressing issues when they do happen. I'm not sure if it falls under the jurisdiction of the police department, but it would be great if we had some type of funding that would go to like creating some type of a force or ambassadors that would create alternatives to using the police, and they would educate students on how to carry that out in their own campus or in their own communities, right? And that $5 million budget can do a lot of things. So what can the police department actually do? And I want to be careful with this because I don't want to, like, if, you know, talking about abolition, I don't want to reform a police department. I would like to create a different institution that would do a better job than what they're doing now. But we can definitely work towards redefining what policing looks like. And if we had a group of paid professionals that were educated how to look approachable, how to approach communities of color, how to approach students of color, how to understand the social reality of what people go through, and value their experiences, I think then they can be some type of tool for students to uphold alternatives to policing.
Thank you. Chief Murphy, do you want to have the last word on that? Oh, and then I'll follow up with Dr. Watkins.
Sure, thank you. I really like what the panelists at the end of the table said, because it certainly reiterated the importance of members of police departments understanding the impact that sometimes just their mere presence has. And that's an important thing, and that is something that we will speak to in the profession. You know, we understand that people have different experiences with police departments, with police officers that come to university campuses, and we have to respect the fact that every individual's experience isn't one where they're happy to see the police around, because that has not been a positive outcome for many people. So certainly that is a reality that we do address in the police department, and we have often, not just here at CSUN, but I'm speaking to other experiences that I have, we have gained a lot by having various members of various communities come in and talk to our police officers, just to reiterate that particular fact. So there's always value in that, and it's something that I always try to advocate for myself within the departments to which I'm attached.
I agree. I wanted to thank Keely too for the context that she set in terms of how we might be able to go forward and improve relationships. Students exist in a lot of different communities on our campus. Housing and what happens there is different than what's happening down on the main campus, on and on and on. And I think that I would hope that, particularly with the new administration here, that students might feel more comfortable inviting these kinds of conversations. And I think that the new chief is going to be trying to invite himself into spaces where we can have the opportunity to learn and grow and understand more clearly. I think we recognize that for many of our students who come to this university from Los Angeles, where their experiences have not been good with LAPD, they come and they see uniforms that kind of look like LAPD. It's an immediate transition to that kind of thinking about the relationship. So sometimes the nature of the interaction is formed even by experiences before the interaction goes down. We need to be sufficiently familiar with that as administrators and leaders, and understand that we have to work hard to get over those things that divide us. But my hope is that here, within the context of this university, that we truly can be a community with a set of values that we believe in and we would want to really be reflected in society, but at least we have this opportunity here to be together as a community and learn and grow from each other.
Thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the audience. Are there any questions in the audience? And give me a minute, because let me grab a mic. I'm going to go this way, back and forth, so keep your hands up.
Why don't we try this? Why don't we have people line up by the mic stand who want to ask questions?
And I would ask that since there are so many of you that would like to speak, please be brief, be to the point with your question so that we can get it answered so that we can hear from the rest of your colleagues behind you in line.
Hi everyone, my name is Zoe Contreras. I am actually very happy that we're having this discussion. I am pursuing my bachelor's degree in business management, but I do have 3 daughters that I am very concerned of. When we're talking about disarming officers that are here to protect us, I'm alarmed at what I see. As you can see, I'm much older than most of you, but I can tell you this much. The law is placed for the lawless. And yes, I will not negate that there has been police brutality, there has been racial profile, and we are all aware of that. But I do know this, that the law is placed for the lawless, and your name is Kayla. I am so glad that we are still having the same conversation. I believe that police officers are here to protect us. And yes, a lot of people, including people in my own family, have suffered police brutality, but I cannot generalize and think that they're all the same. So I'm glad that you're both here, and as we can see, they are minorities because we will consider them minorities in our society, but they're here to protect us, especially with the threat that we had last year. I am glad that they're here, and I want them to continue being here for the protection, not just of all the students, but also of the faculty and everybody else, and also for the future generations that are going to come and educate themselves in this institute. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Is that a question or a comment?
Thank you for that. This deserves a round of applause for
America's North.
the statement, right? But if we do look at the institution, it is racist. So even if you are a minority or of color, you end up conforming to that institution. So you end up imposing these racist ideologies at the end of the day. So there was a question that was asked, how do y'all foster relationships with students, right? I apologize, my name is David Contreras, I'm Chino, I'm doing my master's in social work. So how do you foster relationship with students? The chief made a statement on the presence for protection. Thank you for that statement, but protection for who, right? When we do create these we want to voice our opinions as students of color and we protest, who are y'all protecting? You're not protecting us, you're not backing us up. You're actually facing us, protecting Diane Harrison, giving her a personal escort on campus, making us feel like we're the criminals. So one thing would be that you could do is stop protecting the higher ups and protect us, actually listen to us. In addition, I've been criminalized my whole life by the way I grow, by the way I walk, by the way I talk, where I grew up. So I know how it feels to be criminalized. Coming on campus, I didn't expect that. But yet, it still happened. As an undergrad, I had a situation, I was walking across the library, it was 12 a.m., yeah, I'm a night owl, all right, cool. But I had the police point the flashlight as I walked all the way through. And I have it on camera, and I'm just like, damn, that sucks. And in addition to that, when you're on the job, y'all call yourself social workers, or that you're doing social work. I take that offensively, because I'm a social worker now. Now I'm supposed to be a professional, yeah, but I'm here for my people. I'm here to heal our communities. But when you're criminalizing us and you're calling yourself a social worker, you're not actually doing social work. So y'all don't have the training to be dealing with mental health, emotional health. So I would kind of request, don't be calling yourself social work unless you went through that field, right? In addition, that power to give students a 5150 and walk them or take them on your cars to the mental health institutions. personally, going through that, it's having a 5150 on my record, it just sucks. And then hearing how the institution plays a part, like, I've heard your police officers make offensive comments. I've seen it firsthand. And it's just, I guess I would like to ask, what are you doing personally to be agents of change as people of color within a white institution instead of being agents of social control?
So I'm going to respond to the question. You know, through a series of education and training with the police department is what we do to be agents of change and exposing to our police officers the challenges that they will face in a very diverse community such as a campus, and the concerns that they need to have as they go about doing what they do. What you referenced is an important example because it underscores the impact that an act like that will have on an individual. And that can't go without being addressed and having at least a conversation around it, because change truly starts internally. And it's important for me to be able to convey to police officers that every little act that you take in the community can have a significant impact on the members of the community. And that has to be understood. When you wear the uniform, and that's why a couple of people said, don't take it personally. Thank you. I've gotten to the place to where I understand that. But you also have to understand that you're showcased every second. Everything you do is magnified even more because you do have the color of authority that a few people have mentioned. It is an incredible thing to be able to take someone's freedom, and we can't minimize that and wear the uniform. It requires performance at a higher level of standard. And so for me, I hold people to a higher standard. I'm known for saying a higher standard actually means a higher standard. That will have some consequence for you if you're wearing this uniform and a badge. It simply does. So, I really appreciate what you shared because it provides a great example, not just for this session, but also for interactions that I have with police officers about the importance of every little thing you do. So thank you.
Are we allowed to respond to the first question?
I'm sorry?
Comment?
Are we allowed to respond to a comment?
Yeah, we didn't have the mic when the first comment was made. Are we allowed to respond?
You know what? Yes, quickly, because I want to get to the rest of the questions. And I see another hand that wants to respond, so keep it brief, please, and pass the mic. Thank you.
Well, all I wanted to say is that I think what you missed from my argument when I said to get rid of the police is that what police started as. And the police were a product of the end of slavery. And they were not for the people, they were not to protect and serve, they were to bring slaves back. And the prison system started off as systematic slavery. So I wasn't trying to discredit what they do now, but they need to recognize where they started.
I also wanted to agree, not negating, I think changing an approach, I think not assuming what you thought, but I think what I got from it is just like, oh, we're going to end policing altogether. I think it was different. I think it's the amount of changing the approach doesn't mean removing policing entirely. So, yeah, I think that, I don't know if there's a misconception.
Hello, my name is Fernando Lopez Gonzalez. I'm a sophomore. I'm pursuing a bachelor's degree in communication studies. First, what I'm going to be talking about is a comment. And before I get to that comment, I just would like to say that you can be a police and you can be a person of color, but that doesn't mean that that police is kind, and it doesn't mean that it makes me feel any safer. So my comment is, as a sophomore, I've witnessed so much hate speech, violence, and police on campus, and some few examples of that are Homeland Security, also known as ICE, was on campus. Police protect hate speech, shouting slurs at those a part of the LGBTQ community, hate symbols on campus, professors and adults putting their hands on students, heavy police presence at public meetings, and separate doors because white people are scared of people of color. Guns on campus on social media that are waving it around like it's a toy. Sexual harassment on campus, cultural appropriation, threats on campus to shoot the school, and more. Putting more police on campus is only a temporary solution to a permanent problem. It's a band-aid that you're putting on a permanent scar. At the end of the day, the people who created these hate crimes and much more are still out there. And it comes to the point where students had to notify other students before police or CSUN could. So no, I don't feel safe on campus.
My name is Dalen Simmons, and I have one question because I heard a lot about a cutting of was it 5 million, correct?
So what I said was, let me clarify. I'm not sure what the exact police budget was. Someone quoted $5 million, and my response was, there aren't any budgets on this campus that are being raised this year. We are all faced with cuts. Now, I don't know how much that is, so I don't want to lie to you, but I do know, quite frankly, if you look up the budget notes, you can go to the Faculty Senate webpage, it's there. The campus, which includes that $5 million for police and every other little pot of money, there are budget cuts right now.
So my question in regards to that, because I did hear you say that it was getting cut, was basically where is that money going to that's getting cut? Because my thing was, one thing that I loved that Diego said on the panel was that about like ethnic classes being cut. Like if that money's being cut, it could be used to something else. Also, not to mention too, if you think about retention rates for Black and Latino students, at first when I first came in, it was about 5%, and now I'm a sophomore, so now it's 3%. And then also, there's a lot of Latino students who attend the school, but they don't graduate at the same rates compared to their white counterparts. So my thing is, can that money that's being cut from different parts of the school be used for retention rates just to keep students of color? Because it could be a reason, you never know. I just think that if students don't feel safe on school, they're less likely to come. So my thing is retention rates and students in safety goes hand in hand.
So part of the budget cut is going to a deficit that we already have. So part of our issue here on this campus is that when the state funds us, they don't fund us always for benefits. And so part of what happens is if you are a faculty or a staff member, your benefits go up and up and up and up. But the budget that the state gives the campus to do that doesn't follow inflation. So it's not like we're taking money away from ethnic studies to give it to somebody else. It's to cover expenses that have already been outlaid for the most part. But I will make note of your note and I will pass it on to UPPG, because for those of you who are interested in the budget, we have a pretty transparent process here, and there's a whole group on campus that takes care of that for us in concert with Faculty Senate and other groups on campus.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Malik. Bio major. Thank you. Thank you. Psychology and Africana minor. So my first question is for you, Chief Murphy. Being an officer, but also being Black, I assume you understand, I assume it's a safe assumption that you understand the racial history between officers and people of color, especially Black people in LA. So I just was wondering, what are you personally doing to help bridge the disconnect and pain between Black students and officers? And it's not like an attack, I'm just like genuinely curious because, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of distrust in being Black and being an officer, like I said. And this is for everyone on the panel. As mentioned, it seems as though the police force is Diane Harrison's personal body escort. So where would you sort of draw the line between following orders, doing your job, and becoming a private military force? Police are meant to uphold and reinforce democracy, but when you guard the entrance to a faculty senate meeting that should be open to everyone, you reinforce a racial regime led by our racist President Harrison. So I just wanted to know where would you guys consider drawing the line between militant force and doing your job? And as stated, I just wanted to get the rest of your opinions. How would you guys feel about a self-defense type thing led by Student Coalition's Ethnic Studies specifically for a self-defense kind of thing? Not necessarily like Black Panthers, but reminiscent of them because they did have a lot of community support and community help that got communities resources they needed, taught them how to defend themselves and act in certain legal situations. Those are my questions.
So, I will start off by, responding to your first question to me. Yes, I'm a black man in America, and when I'm not in uniform, I'm another black man in America. So, yes, I'm attuned to the challenges that come with that. I wasn't necessarily going to get into it because I'm not sure the significance that it has, but I'm a middle 50-aged black man in America, which means I was born in the early 60s. I was born in a part of the country that's known as Appalachia. And if you look at the demographics of that place, you can see that as a black person growing up in Appalachia, it's about less than 2% of the people. So when I walked into grade school as a young man or a young child, I walked into a school where I was the only person that looked like me. Not in my grade, not in my section, but in the school, in the entire community that I arrived at. So that had its own package of experiences that I became accustomed to. As I moved through life, similar stories, and like I said, even today, once I'm not in uniform and I'm moving about in society, I face some of the same challenges. So it would almost be impossible for me to not at least try to convey to people, like I mentioned with the earlier matter. By wearing the uniform, I'm not going to stop people from hating. I can respond to the behavior that they exhibit from their hatred, but I have little impact merely by wearing the uniform to be able to stop people from hating. What I can do within the profession is, once again, I can try to raise the attention of those people that serve alongside me to what impact their and my actions have being in uniform, and how, and the one thing that I've done, I've met with each individual since I arrived here on January the 7th to speak to them. And I've done it methodically. And I have 5 points where I'm asking them questions, but in the 5th one, I extend my expectation of it. And I say, my expectation is simple. It is that you do your job, that you do it with integrity, that you're candid, and that above all, you exercise empathy when you're doing your job. And that you try to place yourself in the shoes of the individual that you're dealing with and think, how would I feel in that person's shoes if the interaction was going the way that it's going? Because I believe that if people do that, then they're more apt to come out of the situation and behaving the appropriate manner than if they don't do that. And so that's what I started with, personally doing, to try to force that issue. Because I think it transcends more than just, my experience as being a black man. I think it transcends the LGBT community. I think it transcends every diversity that's represented in this room. We simply attempt to put ourselves in the shoes of the individual that we're dealing with.
Thank you.
I think there was a further question.
Yeah, I could answer the. I don't know if anyone had an answer to the second question. I think earlier I said abolition means to me divestment from law enforcement and reinvestment into communities. I think something CSUN can start doing would be divestment in law enforcement and divestment in administration expansion and investment in student success that's identified by students, and they work with students of color. And I think some type of coalition would be good if students could sit on some type of auxiliary board that can watch over and examine how the police enforcement is doing the work, and provide feedback for them to do it better.
Good afternoon. My name is Manny Escamilla. I'm a graduating senior, earning a bachelor's degree in computer and information technology.
Congratulations. Sorry, gotta give it up for graduates.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's an exciting time. Like many other students in this room currently, I grew up with a very large mistrust of the police department. And to hear that someone threw out a figure of $5 million as your budget is unsettling. And so I wanted to clear up a couple things that I have questions regarding that issue. I guess they're more pointed toward you, Chief Murphy, but if anybody else has relevant knowledge, please share. So first, could you corroborate exactly what your department budget looks like? Could you give us some details on what that money is allocated for, such as firearms or training, or how much is used for vehicles per se? If any of those services are pointed towards helping students, I myself have had help from Seasons campus for a dead battery and such, so I do know that your department does more than just apprehend, but I'd like to get a clearer picture of how much of your budget is directed towards apprehension and how much of it is directed towards community service. And just to tie you into this question, Sergeant Gudani, could you give me an idea of like what a week in your profession looks like on campus?
Great question, thank you, and once again, congratulations. Congratulations. The budget is, as I said before, it's personnel to cover, having coverage for 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, and the equipment to respond when needed. Calls for service are made from the community so that we can respond appropriately to address them. We also have a series of community programs. We have housing all dedicated to the residential units on campus. We run programs for, like Sergeant Johnny mentioned earlier, his involvement in grad training, which is aggression defense training. We do train a lot so that we can adequately respond to the community that we serve. A lot of what has been discussed here today, we send officers regularly to training, a variety of topics. And, it's interesting that I find myself talking about training because I'm one of the biggest critics when I said, and I'm watching the news and I'm watching the latest unfortunate police event that just took place. And the irony is, as you sit there and you look at me, you probably would be amazed because you would say, really, is that the same guy? Because I almost want to throw things at the television when I hear chiefs say, well, we need to do more training in this. Because sometimes what I see and hear, in my opinion, is not an issue of training. It's an issue of judgment. And no amount of training at some point is going to impact just a bad actor or ridiculously poor judgment. And so there's a lot of effort that goes into the selection of a police officer to look at what that individual has done in their past life that might be a predictor of what I can expect of them in the future. So, when we have officers, there is an expense associated with the full background process that includes a battery of different exams to hopefully give us information about not bringing the wrong people into this environment. So a little bit on the soapbox. I apologize for trying to bring myself back to your question, but so when we have the complement of equipment, the complement of personnel, the complement of training to make sure that our people are adequately trained, quite frankly, so that I can hold them accountable for behaving and performing in the way that they should in this community.
That's really the sum of what is it up.
I'm gonna have to interrupt for a minute. We only have a little more time. And we would like you all to have a chance to break bread with us. I don't want to end the conversation. I think this is something that we're going to need to continue. Perhaps another, Dr. Watkins is agreeing with me. So another scheduled event. So please stay, have something to eat, continue to ask your questions. I think our panelists will be able to hang out for a little bit longer. And if you would please fill out the surveys that were on your chairs when you sat down, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
So I just want to say and recognize that we are on Indian land, and there have been a number of people that have died at the hands of the state, at the hands of settler colonialism, of which you all represent in that uniform. I also want to give a shout out to all the people that are incarcerated, that have been systems impacted. I also want to reiterate that none of what's happened right here, right now, solves anything that's going outside of these doors. This, in many ways, is a public relations stunt. I do feel that because we are here, we can somehow feel better about ourselves individually for walking out of here and having this conversation that is very upsetting because, again, nothing is necessarily being done. I never heard individuals being asked if they are willing or what it would look like for this campus to remove themselves from their weapons, from some of these machines that they carry. None of them really said like, yeah, we might be okay with that. Yeah, we might be this. A lot of it is really this, I have to check back, or there's this law, there's this code that I need to follow. But the reality is, if that, how will it be framed? How are this fact that we're here be used as a semblance to show that we are either coming together, becoming stronger as a community, when in reality people are still being racialized, criminalized? And how will even these videos be edited, right? So I really want to ask all of us as individuals to think a little more critically as we leave these spaces, and how are we gonna hear about this, or are we gonna hear about this? Think about it in a week or two. Are we gonna be seeing these individuals in a positive manner, or are we gonna be seeing them and still falling back into our characteristics of like, oh no, they're the cops, fuck them, right? A cab. So those are my questions. What's the point and who benefits? Again, I just want to reiterate that I do feel that this is a whole facade, that this is a public relations stunt, that we are just here without actually getting anything across. I don't necessarily see anybody that, Mr. Watkins, that will return back to his work office and maybe even try to advance this. I think that you are representing the institutional state that has more power than some of us. But again, if we get together, we can actually do something without maybe this, right? Why is it up to somebody else to organize it for us to show up? So this is more questions. Again, Howard, Dr. Watkins, police department, are you willing to let go of those weapons? Watkins, how are you gonna how are you gonna advance this? Is this gonna be like a every 2 weeks type of thing? Are we gonna bring up all the issues that happened last week of people that are getting harassed on campus? How are their voices gonna be coming to these spaces, right? Because a lot of times, it's whoever was free from 2 to 4 that can be here. And that's it.
So we didn't arrange it. I don't know about anybody else.
Yeah, the library, that's what I meant. Because he started off with that.
Well, maybe the library then wants to talk about where to next. What I know is that if in fact there are further opportunities to have conversation and to learn more, because I think that there are a lot more comments that people want to share. I know I'll be here for those, and I'll continue to take down the notes that I have here to see what we can do to try to do some problem solving. There are a lot of different things that we're sharing here. There are different kinds of solutions I think that are associated with the points that were made, but I don't know about who's doing the filming, who's writing articles, or any of that stuff.
As far as the filming, the video itself will be available on the Oviatt YouTube channel in about a week or so. So you'll be able to see the outcome of this. It won't be so heavily edited that you won't recognize the conversation. And the reasoning behind this event was to bring people together, to bring all these elements together, and to get out a lot of the things that you just said in your statement that we need to be talking about, that we need to be hearing about. You mentioned incidents that happened last week. We may not be aware of those incidents. Were they reported? What can we do about them? What were they? So these are conversations that we need to continue to have across campus and across student, faculty, staff, and administrators so that we can actually change something. So I think everybody here is invested in trying to see some kind of change, but it can't happen if we're not having the dialogue.
Hello, my name is Sarah Burgess. I'm a graduating anthropology major. My focus is in environmental racism and racism in healthcare. So my question is for Chief Murphy, and conveniently piggybacking off of what was just said. I like the fact that we're having this conversation, but talk is real cheap, especially when the conversation is with police force and people who are distrustful of the police. So I just want to know if you have any intention on like taking what you heard today and showing us that you're listening and not just hearing what we're saying. Like, do you have any intention on having a conversation with your police force and disarming them? Do you have any intention on like creating a like task force like we were talking about to bridge this gap? Like, what are you gonna do in your position of power to bridge this gap, and how are we gonna see that? Because like we said, this is a community that is distrustful, to say the least, of the police.
Thank you very much for that question. And yes, I will take, as I mentioned before, but just a little defense of myself. I don't want to imply that until today, I never addressed the issues. So, in addition to what I have done, I will continue to do that and take some of the expressions made today back to the police department. There will be reinforcement of things that I have done. If I intend to go back and attempt to disarm the police department, I will be candid with you. No, I do not. I've stated what my fundamental belief of law enforcement is, and that's what it is. But yes, in order to bridge the gap, to have methods of creating partnerships with the community, absolutely. And I believe that it's imperative for us to be successful to have partnerships. I think we have to be able to interact with each other all the time so that we can provide what services and resources we can at a time when folks are calling and they need us. So to answer your question, yes, I certainly intend to take this experience back and grow from it rather than just have it be an event that occurred in my life today.
So in order for the panel to also get a chance to get some food, if you could, address your question to individuals as they're trying to eat, and if you want to jump in line and grab something to eat, and we can continue to talk, but not officially ask questions of them. Thank you.
Yeah, this question is directed for Chief Gregory Murphy. I am a 26-year-old journalism student. Over there are my fellow journalists. Let me bring up November 29th, the day that a female student was assaulted. It was all over the news, and yet we didn't have communication from neither the president or the police department for 2 days. About a week later, we had another scary incident that shook our lives when we had hate speech that was being written all over bathrooms across campus, and yet there was a lack of communication again from the president, from the police department. Well, there was misinformation spread across campus about who was doing what. And my question for you, Chief Murphy, is this. What are you going to do to improve the communication of students, not just when there is a campus-wide event that happens, but what are you going to do to improve the communication with your officers among the students to make sure that it's about communicate, not intimidate?
Hello. Before you start, I would just like to furthermore add on what he said, and my question is also to you, Chief Gregory Murphy. I'm a seasoned student. My name is Mohammed Faisal. I'm actually an international student, and my major is family consumer science education. I'm also concerned about student security at being at Seasons, especially since this is an open session, an open university, and also considering the past events that have occurred, for example, the threat that was, like the shooting threat that occurred in December against Seasons students, and also there was one time last semester, there was an incident where I was with a friend of mine and a religious group came and they were protesting. They passed some comments on my friend, so I would just like to highlight those issues and would like to ask that what steps is Season Police Station taking? Like what is Season Security doing for it? Thank you.
So for the communication piece, we have actually oversight as it relates to communicating various types of criminal activity that occur on campus. If you're not familiar with it, one of the most prevailing ones is the Jean Cleary Act that has pretty specific requirements related to reporting. And so we will be adhering to the measures identified in the Jean Cleary Act. In addition to that, we have, which includes timely warning. We also will implement crime bulletins to notify the community of events related of a criminal nature. One of the things that we're looking at additionally is a solution called Everbridge. And it gives us an option to not only report out criminal activity, but other security and safety measures that may not rise to the level of like an immediate life threat, but just a security issue that we believe the campus should be aware of. That is something that we're looking at that will probably be a future thing within a short future and a long future. But immediately we're obligated to Jean Cleary, and immediately we will and can implement bulletins. So that is the bulk of the communication piece. As it relates to the issue of, you said someone on campus are having speeches and statements that you may find threatening to officers. One of the reasons that there is police presence is because we understand that sometimes situations like that can easily bleed into physical confrontation. And while many times language and things that people are saying may be offensive or distasteful to certainly to me or someone else, if it doesn't violate the law, I certainly can't send police in to stop that. That is a huge constitutional right. So, but what we do is, and that's part of the presence, that as you've heard today, makes many people feel very uncomfortable, our mere presence. But the reason that we do exhibit that presence is because we understand the potential for those situations to become violent, and that by being there, we can mitigate any problem, ideally stop it before it does go violent, but certainly if it does, to hopefully mitigate it. And so we will, that will be the approach.
Now I wanted to speak on the issue of communicating in a more timely way with our student body when there is a crisis occurring here. That's not just on the chief and early warning notifications. We certainly, as an administration, believe that we did not proceed as quickly as we need to in the future. I think we understand very clearly that if we're not talking, somebody's going to fill that vacuum with some message. It may be inaccurate. It may accelerate the problem. So we know that in this particular social media environment within which we live today, we need to act more expeditiously whenever it is that there's a threat somewhere on the campus. So we're trying to work out, a particular scheme for that so the students will understand the ways in which we will communicate with them. But that's one of the hugest takeaways for this administration following what happened last fall. We need to act far more speedily and directly right away to let students know, we know that there's a problem, we're on top of it, we'll get back to you when we have more to report.
Would you allow a follow-up question from what I